I was having like 3 to 5 migraines a week when I was in my 20s. While I was going from doctor to doctor, trying to figure out what was going on and trying a bunch of different medications, I was also starting to deal with a bunch of other symptoms that started to pile up. When I was in my early 30s, I went to a doctor's appointment and they wanted to give me yet another prescription. I just said there has to be a different way. And I ended up just getting online one night and started researching alternative methods and came across somebody who was doing what I do now and ended up signing up to work with her. And that's really what changed the trajectory of my life. And I am now 8 years migraine-free.
Welcome to the Hope Natural Health Podcast. I'm Dr. Erin Ellis, your host. On this show, we discuss all things health, hormones, and happiness with a little side of this thing called life. Brings both deep personal experience and professional expertise to the conversation around chronic health struggles that many women and men have lived with for years. Kim Heinz is a certified functional health strategist who helps people uncover the underlying causes of stuff like migraines, fatigue, brain fog, anxiety, digestive distress, insomnia, and more, especially when conventional medicine hasn't provided answers. Kim's own journey through decades of headaches, fatigue, and other chronic symptoms led her to real data-driven approaches that transformed her health. Now she works with clients one-on-one using functional lab testing, personalized protocols, and thoughtful interpretation to help them feel more energized, productive, and, well, without guesswork. So welcome to the show, Kim.
Thank you. Good to be here.
Great. Well, before we dive in, tell me a little bit more about your background. It sounds like you had your own journey, like most of us do, to get us to where we are. So tell us a little bit about that and how you got into doing what you're doing.
Yeah, like you said in the intro, I dealt with decades of the big thing that started everything for me was headaches and chronic migraines. I was having like 3 to 5 migraines a week when I was in my 20s, and into my early 30s. And while I was going from doctor to doctor, trying to figure out what was going on and trying a bunch of different medications, I was also starting to deal with a bunch of other symptoms that started to pile up. So fatigue and brain fog and insomnia and over a dozen other symptoms. And I also was an athlete. So seeing all these, I was doing all these things right. I was exercising and eating healthy and all those things. And I was really struggling to understand like why I was having such a hard time with my own health. And when I was and I was taking a bunch of different medications too. And when I was in my early 30s, I went to a doctor's appointment and they wanted to give me yet another prescription. I just said there has to be a different way. And I ended up just getting online one night and started researching alternative methods and came across somebody who was doing what I do now and ended up signing up to work with her. And that's really what changed the trajectory of my life. And I am now 8 years migraine-free. Where I was having that many a week, and all my other issues have disappeared as well. And, it happened fairly quickly, which is what made me want to turn around and be able to like show other people that there is a way out of their health struggles.
Awesome. Can you share what you discovered was your underlying cause?
Yeah, it was a number of factors. I had quite a bit going on in my gut, which is why I've put such a big focus on gut health over the course of my career, my changing career. And I also had a lot of hormonal imbalances as well. I had major nutrient imbalances. So I had really big depletions in some areas, and others I was like had an excess of. I had copper toxicity. So it was just like a whole bunch of different little things that together created this like mass chaos in my body.
Yeah, it's usually never usually one thing because the body's connected. So yeah, I see that clinically myself as well all the time. I'm like, it's usually not just your thyroid. It's not just your hormones. It's a combination of a myriad of things. So
if
awesome.
It was that easy. Oh, sorry.
I know, right?
Yeah.
It was that easy. And that's why like, conventional medicine, how I call, a pill for your ill isn't going to fix it because it's not just one, it's not that easy. So
Right. Yeah.
yeah, you're a living example. So many women that I see are high capacity, high responsibility, and they're quietly burnt out. So, from your perspective, how does chronic stress physiology actually start to impact our gut? Because that's where you really like to focus. And what patterns do you tend to see first in these women?
Yeah, I also work with a lot of like high performers, high capacity individuals, and so I see these things quite a bit in my own practice. And I think some of the bigger areas that I see starting to show up for people is before it maybe cascades into bigger issues would be things like low stomach acid. We don't hear a lot about stomach acid, but it actually we usually when we're hearing about it, it's more like high stomach acid.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but chronic stress depletes stomach acid big time, and people will start seeing things like undigested food when they go to the bathroom. It allows stomach acid is what protects us, and so people will start dealing with like more gut infections popping up and stuff, and so that's a big thing. Also, I see a lot of leaky gut as well, where people have just these small perforations really can happen in the gut, and what happens is that over time things that shouldn't be passing through the stomach lining get into our bloodstream and can cause a lot of inflammation, and so people will start feeling like this inflamed feeling. They can't really describe it, but they're experiencing that. And then a couple other things I see would be changes in gut motility. So either chronic constipation or the other side of it where they're dealing with diarrhea, or they swing back and forth both ways, where some weeks they're one way and another week they're other ways. And then poor immune function. People just feel like they're getting sick more often. A lot of our immune system is in our gut. And so I see that happening a lot too.
Mhm. The gut is so often overlooked. And I see that a lot of times when patients come to me, from conventional medicine, maybe another provider, and it's like, well, nobody's really addressed the gut. And that could be where, a lot of your symptoms are stemming. So I
Yeah.
love that you focus a lot on the gut. I think everyone should look there first because even and it's very interesting because a lot of times people have gut stuff and you're a good example of and not really having like digestive concerns. Like everybody associates a healthy gut because they have healthy bowel movements. So you can have all the healthy bowel movements in the world and still have, a very unhappy gut.
Yeah.
So that's why I do a lot of stool testing and comprehensive testing like that for gut health. And I don't think I've seen, one normal gut. And I think a lot of it has to do with one, stress, because who doesn't have stress? And then, our environment and all of that. So
Yeah.
super
No.
important.
Same here. I see a lot of imbalances in the gut, even when clients aren't dealing with
Yeah.
any gut symptoms, but they've got all these other things popping up for
Yeah.
them. Yeah.
Yep, for sure. When someone says, I'm doing everything right, but I still feel inflamed, bloated, or exhausted, how often do you find that the gut is involved? And how do our stress hormones like cortisol change the gut environment over time?
Yeah. I find that the gut is a pretty big factor. If someone were to come to me and say, what labs should I run? Because I run a lot of functional labs. I would say that stool testing is up there as one of the top two.
Hmm.
Mineral testing would be the other one because stress also just depletes nutrients like crazy as well. We just burn through the nutrients we have.
Hmm.
So I would say that it's important in my opinion to look at the gut, because especially if you do have like leaky gut or poor immune function, poor digestive capacity. I mean, if you're not digesting your food very well and you've got a poor immune system, like it's going to knock you back. So that's one of the things that I see a lot. Your body goes into survival mode when you're dealing with a lot of chronic stress, and so it basically shuts digestion down. because the body sees digestion almost as a luxury compared to some of the
Mm-hmm.
other functions that your body needs to keep you alive, right? Like your heart beating, your lungs, breathing, and all those types of things. And so that's where you start noticing maybe you're dealing with a little bit of like digestive changes when you are dealing with a lot of stress, or if you've been under chronic, unrelenting stress for quite a while. I find that, cortisol is our stress hormone and it breaks the body down over time. So cortisol is an amazing hormone because it can help us. But if we are dealing with chronic stress for a long time, our body feels like it's just constantly being chased by a bear. And over time, your body just can't keep up with that level of intensity. And it does, it starts to break the body down. And so the more time you are under stress, the more that you're dealing with this chronic stress, the more imbalances we start to see pop up. And it's not one of those things that it happens overnight. It's kind of like, oh, I've just noticed I've been feeling more fatigued lately, or oh, yeah, my digestion just has been kind of weird lately, and kind of starts like a quiet whisper like that. And then over time, it really starts to get louder and louder and louder. And then over time, we start seeing more and more stuff pop up as well, parasites and bacterias and things like that that really start to creep in the longer the gut is, I guess, unprotected, if you will.
Yeah. You mentioned mineral imbalance. Can you speak a little bit on that?
Yeah. So I do hair tissue mineral analysis or HTMA testing. And some of the big things that I see with chronic stress especially would be one of two patterns essentially. So what we're doing at this test is we're looking at nutrient levels, minerals especially, um, and typically when somebody's been under a lot of stress for a long period of time, we will see either complete depletion across the board, so all their nutrients are just super low because their body's just been burning through them nonstop to be able to just function. For magnesium, for example, which is one of the core minerals that we look at on that test, is used in, depending on who you ask, 300, 500, 600 interactions in the body, and a lot of interactions. And so it's also the most easily lost due to stress. And so typically we see that pretty well depleted in someone who's dealing with chronic stress, because also we just don't get magnesium from our diet the way that we used to due to our modern farming practices and diets and things like that. Sodium, which is crucial for nutrient for our adrenals to function, is a lot of times I see that super low, like a quarter of where it should be. And so sodium levels tend to be pretty depleted in somebody who has been under chronic stress for a long time and they're feeling it. And then potassium too, I'll see that pretty depleted as well. That's one of our other minerals that's easily lost and we don't hear enough about. The other times, the other pattern I'll see is maybe depletions on those magnesium, sodium, and potassium, but I'll see calcium being built up in the tissues because because we know calcium is a hard substance, right? It helps make our bones strong. And we'll see that actually building up in the tissues as a way to protect you from the stress. So it isn't necessarily a good thing. It's just one of the interesting biomechanics of the body where it starts to build up around like your cells to protect you. But at the same time, it's preventing nutrients from getting in. So your cells almost start to go hungry. And then, you're starting to feel really depleted that way too.
My mic keeps muting myself. I don't know why it's doing that. Um, Anyways, that was very interesting about minerals. A lot of it is, well, what sodium, electrolytes, really.
Yeah. Yeah. The
And I
core.
would say, yeah, and most of America is chronically dehydrated.
Yeah, exactly.
So,
Yeah. And think of the word electrolytes, like that's electricity. That's our body's electricity, right?
yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
There was, I had a friend who started drinking electrolytes for, I don't know, just started drinking them. And she goes, oh my gosh, I get such good energy when I drink electrolytes. Who would have thunk? And I'm like, yeah, imagine that.
Yeah.
So, yep. Um, let's see. So for in perimenopause and menopause, like I help a lot of demographic in this range of life, especially stress tolerance, like often shifts. Can you explain how our nervous system overload can alter digestion? You already kind of touched a little bit on the digestion, but maybe a little bit more on like the microbiome balance and speak to that. I don't think you touched on the microbalance of the gut.
Yeah. Yeah. So similar to what we were talking about a little bit ago with
Mm-hmm.
with stress really breaking the body down, what it does is it will deplete the microbiome. Is our gut is made of this like massive ecosystem of microorganisms,
Mm-hmm.
good bacteria. If we get it down to the basics, it's good bacteria versus bad bacteria, and stomach acid is helping protect, an overgrowth of, bad bacteria and other organisms from coming in. But the longer we're under stress, the more depleted our good bacteria becomes, which depletes our immune system as well at the same time. And it allows for, kind of opens the door for anyone to come in and just have a party in your gut.
Mm-hmm.
And so, because the good bacteria, the balance there is supposed to help protect us. But when it gets depleted, which I see a lot on the stool testing that I do, it over time really allows for all of these gut issues to start popping up, or underlying gut issues that are contributing to some of the symptoms that you're dealing with.
Yeah. Very, very important. We have so many different, I mean, I don't even know what billions of microbes in our gut.
Yeah, yeah, it's
Like
it's
it's
a whole
crazy.
it's a whole world in each of our guts.
It's so fascinating when you actually look into the gut. And people are weirded out by stool testing just because it's like, oh, I have to collect my poo. Like nobody wants to do that. But it literally can give us so much information just from your bowels. It's crazy. And I've been using it. I've been using it more, but for women that I haven't done it and then I do, a stool test, it's like the missing link. I'm like, this is exactly why we needed to do this because this explains why we can't get, to heal from whatever it is because we have found your gut here. So
Yeah.
so anyone that might be listening, specifically these women who are just burnt out, overwhelmed, stressed out, my busy moms, like what would you recommend are the most practical first steps that they can take to really calm the stress gut loop without really adding more to their plate because they don't want another million things to do, right?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. It's the last thing you want when you when you've already got a million things on your plate, is to add more things to it. So, some of the simplest things that we can do can really just kind of slide into your daily routine. Um, you know, or is just a different way of doing the same thing. So like for example, eating. Stop multitasking while we're eating because we are so busy. We're, not taking a lunch break. We're eating at our desks if we're, at
Mhm.
work, or we're eating on the go if we're trying to go from, one appointment to another, or cars, pickups, to carpool a lot or what have you. And so finding a way to just create even a few minutes where you're not multitasking allows you to slow down while eating and just chew your food. One of the most underrated things we can do for good gut health in general is to thoroughly chew our food versus swallowing our food whole, which so many of us do, especially when we are multitasking, because your teeth, that's where digestion really begins, is in the mouth. And your teeth do a really good job breaking things down, and then your gut will take it from there. But if you're swallowing, let's say, like, a piece of chicken whole, you took maybe a couple bites, but it's mostly whole, then your gut has to work extra hard to do what, the hard substances of your teeth were supposed to do. And so that can also damage your gut and lead to some of these issues as well. So that's one of the best things you can do, the simplest things without adding anything else to your plate. Um, Another thing that I find to be super helpful is just, eating breakfast before you have caffeine, if it's possible. Doesn't have to be a big old meal. It could be just something in your stomach, because especially if you're already in a stressed state, like this is, and I'm speaking specifically to people who already deal with like a load of stress, not somebody who's already in balance, but it can, if you have like a cup of coffee and you don't eat, and maybe it's a few hours until you eat, what that does is it will end up spiking your cortisol. for up to 18 hours. And so that can impact your blood sugar. It can cause crashes later, cravings later. And then obviously we talked about how cortisol just breaks the body down in general. And so that's just one more level of thing, or one more layer of things that is causing issue in the body. And so just, I always tell my clients, like, have a hard boiled egg before you have your cup of coffee. You know, it doesn't have to be this big meal that you sit down to do. And then I think a couple other things that I find to be super helpful would be like just getting a little bit of morning sunlight, because that helps with your circadian rhythm. And, you know, cortisol should be high in the morning and lower at night, and it helps to reset that. And so, you know, even though it doesn't seem like that would impact your gut, it really can. And it doesn't mean you have to go, you know, sit out in the sun for 30 minutes, but even if you're sitting in your kitchen window getting ready for your day, you know, just walk out to the mailbox or something, just to get a little bit of sunlight on your eyeballs, that can make a big difference as well. And then getting out for a walk is really great. It's probably one of the more underutilized things that we can do, and get the family involved. You know, it's you know, get it as an opportunity for you to get out and take, you know, take the kids out for a walk too, get everybody going and involved. Or like my husband and I will, we're both very busy, and so there's usually 10 minutes where we'll just go out for a walk around the block, just so we can catch up on each other's day before we move on to the next thing. And so it can be really good for relationship building, but also just really great for digestion and blood sugar and circulation, and just getting things moving. So those are some of the easy things I find that people can do that really don't take up a lot of time, and really is just kind of reorganizing what you're already doing.
Yeah, great tips and stuff I preach almost every day too. Conversation, the podcast I recorded before you was very similar steps. And I laugh because, you know, you say this over and over and over again to patients, and then it's like, do they even believe me? But then I hear it from other people, and I'm like, okay, they probably should believe me now, because I'm not the only one saying these things.
Yeah. Well, and it's funny because I'll reconnect with a client who maybe I haven't worked with in a few months, and she'll be like, "Yeah, you know, I'm doing this and this, and I'm having these symptoms," and we'll kind of go through some of the foundational things, because, you know, those are all foundational. And she'll be like, "Yeah, I did get away from all of those things," and, you know, then I'll hear back in a couple weeks, "Oh, I'm already feeling so much better." So it's the simplest things sometimes can make the biggest impact.
For sure. Well, you hit on some things that we can do. Would be some things that women might be doing that they're not even aware that are actually like not helping their gut at all.
You know, and it varies depending on the person too, but like,
Yeah.
I think that some of the bigger things I see is like assuming that like taking a probiotic is going to
Mm,
fix all of the issues. Some, you know, are probiotics helpful? Sure, for some people, but sometimes they're actually causing more problems for people. It just kind of depends on what your situation is. So,
mhm.
and it's not a magic fix either. You know, I think that's one thing. I think that just another thing was like those late night internet scrolls where somebody's promoting some of the detox supplements or what have you. Like, I find that the marketing is better than the actual functionality of these products. And so, you know, a lot of us end up having supplement graveyards of things that we bought on a late night internet scroll. And those things did really nothing for us. Hopefully they didn't make us feel worse, but they didn't maybe do anything
Mhm.
positive other than maybe empty our bank account out a little bit more. Um, and so those are a couple of things. I get asked a lot about intermittent fasting, and I think that
Mm,
that also has to be, you know, some people are like, well, you know, if I fast, then it's less digestion that my gut has to do. And for a stressed body, I feel like sometimes that can also work against us too, because fasting for long periods of time can also be a bit of a stressor as well. And
mhm.
so we just have to be really careful about long fasts. Like sometimes just dinner to breakfast is a good enough of a fast, you know? So,
Mhm.
you know, I think that that's something that people really need to approach with a grain of salt. And I think the last thing I'd like to mention too would be going low carb, because I find that a lot of my clients who are low carb are more depleted because it lowers their sodium levels, like we talked about, and they don't have like a lot of the beneficial bacteria, that good bacteria we talked about.
Great advice. What would be maybe your top 3 foods that someone could start incorporating to help the gut microbiome?
Um, one of my one of my favorite things, just for I guess for stomach or just digestion in general, would be actually sea salt, good quality sea salt, because it actually helps stimulate digestion, and helps build up that stomach acid. So, putting a pinch of, want to make sure it's good quality sea salt. You don't want it to be like table salt or anything, but it's mineral rich, and that will help your body generate its own stomach acid. So start with a pinch in a glass of like warm water, or not cold water, and have that and build up to a quarter teaspoon. I find that to be super helpful first thing in the morning, as you're getting breakfast ready for the kids or what have you. Just sip on that. So that's one of the really best things that I find that people can do, like from a starting standpoint. Other foods that I find to be beneficial would be like prebiotic rich foods. Just making sure you're incorporating good prebiotic rich foods if you can tolerate them, of course, but like onions and bananas and things like that, I think can be really beneficial. And then as far as like other, if you are going to do probiotics, maybe aiming for like a probiotic rich yogurt, like live culture yogurt, instead of going with a supplement. Maybe starting there if you can tolerate dairy.
Why warm water and not cold water with the salt?
Because cold water kind of slows down digestion. And so it doesn't have to be hot water, but just even if it's
Yeah.
room temperature or slightly warmer, it's going to help stimulate digestion, especially first thing in the morning. Your digestion's been shut down for probably at least 8 hours.
Yeah.
And so you want to start kind of turning the systems on, if you will, with
Right.
like 8 ounces of just warm or just slightly, maybe a little warmer water with that sea salt.
Yep. Yeah, and it's not what goes to even with drinking cold beverages. Like you're not really supposed to drink while you eat,
Right.
like beverages, period, right?
Yeah.
Because it disrupts. Go
Yeah,
for it.
it dilutes the stomach acid,
Yeah.
and yeah, it just you obviously don't choke on your food. Like if you have a dry,
Right.
if you need to have a sip of water, great. But like I think I feel like we've kind of gone into this phase where we have, drinking a large drink along with our meals is like just part of our culture now, and I think that obviously can have a negative detriments to us.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, this has been such a great conversation, very insightful. We'll wrap it up in question I ask all my podcast guests. What would be your best or favorite health tip that you can share with the audience that you might not have shared already?
Yeah, and I was gonna save the salted
Uh-huh.
water for this, and then I got into it, and I was like, oh shoot, I used up my good tip. Um, um, yeah, I will stick with that. Honestly, I feel like that's one of the most impactful things that we can do. If you can add like a squeeze of half of a lemon to that too, it nourishes your thyroid. It stimulates digestion. It helps support your liver. Now, obviously, if you can't tolerate lemon, leave the lemon out.
Hmm.
But just sipping on that like first thing in the morning before you have anything else, like I really feel like it just all systems a go. I've had clients even
Hmm.
say like they feel like their skin is brighter because of it,
Hmm.
energy is better, and so just give it a try for a couple weeks and see the magic
Yeah.
happen.
It's easy.
Yeah,
Sounds easy.
it's
Everybody can
so
do that.
easy. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, Kim, this has been great. We'll make sure to have all your information linked in the show notes. She's very active on Instagram, so we'll have her handle there. It's kim.heinz. And she's offering the audience a discount code for her hair tissue mineral analysis. I don't do those in office. So if you're ever interested in that, we will share the link to sign up for that. Do you have anything else that you want to share that we might have missed?
Um, I think the biggest thing is just like, if your body is got symptoms, regardless of what they are, listen to them because they're communication signals from the body. And if you listen in, you may not know what they're telling you, but they're telling you something, and that just shows you to, maybe incorporate some of the tips you've heard on this podcast or some of the other great episodes, and see if you can start making changes incrementally.
Yeah, love that. Your body is smart, and it's giving you a little check engine light, so get it checked out.
Absolutely.
Awesome, Kim. Thank you so much for being on the show. And that's a wrap, everyone. We'll see you again next week.